The best advice I ever got in life was from my bass teacher, this guy, Brad Cobb. And he said, nobody's born with it. That's bullshit.
Love it.
He goes, it's practice.
Right.
Everything is practice.
Knock him out the box, Rick. Knock him out, Rick. Knock him out the box.
I really appreciate you coming out.
Oh, absolutely.
Jonny Lieberman.
Hello.
And I'm going to probably butcher your intro, but I'm going to give you kind of how I see you. Because ultimately, I want you to tell your story.
Okay.
Right. And I want to, this is a good segue to what I was saying earlier about, we're starting a whiskey brand, which you'll be.
That's how we know each other.
Right. And we're going to have a whiskey podcast.
Yes.
Called The Whiskey Nerd and the Whiskey Idiot. My partner is, you guessed it, the whiskey nerd, and I'm the idiot, right?
Right.
Because first of all, it allows people like me to learn without feeling intimidated. And I do because once I learned how to drink it, I enjoyed it 100 times more, as you can imagine. Because if you just think it's like you're just drinking it, you got to know how to put a drop on your tongue, let it go. I didn't know how to do that. I was burning my throat,
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm realizing as you're coming on the show, and I actually was talking about you to my friend Alan Hiscox. Shout out. Yes, that's his real name. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I was telling him you're coming on because he's a big car guy, and I was actually hoping he would come by, but he isn't. But I was telling him that shit, I lost my whole train of thought.
That I was going to be on the show.
That you were going to be on the show.
He was excited.
He was excited.
He wasn't angry. He wasn't angry.
He wasn't angry.
Okay, this is good.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back. We'll edit. No, keep that in.
Okay.
Because Alan also taught me about authenticity. Lean into who you are.
Sure.
Perfect segue right back to what I was saying, which is, he's coming on. He's a car guy. He's a cigar guy. I love cigars. I love fast cars. Fuck, give me a fucking Ferrari. I'm jumping in and I'll take it around the block. I love it. I love driving. I love whiskey, but I'm kind of an idiot in all three.
Right.
So I was telling him that what's good about that is you come on shows talking about what you know about, which I'm totally open. I want to learn, but I want to really just hear your story. So once we pour a glass, I want to really hear how you figured yourself out, how you became the person you are today.
Yeah.
And your story, I think, is similar to mine, except you're 10 years ahead.
Maybe. I'm only 46. I'm not.
In terms of finding yourself, because I'm a little bit later. I'm 47.
Got
we're
it.
at the
Same age.
age.
Yeah.
I feel like in terms of progress, in terms of finding yourself, doing something you love, you're in the car industry, something you love to do.
I mean, I've told this story many times, and I'm going to keep telling it. But basically, here's what happened. I was 30 years old. I worked at an art school. I worked at Cal Arts. I was the webmaster. It was a fine job. Nothing wrong with it. Very low pressure. I turned 30. And I remember sitting at my desk, and I went to work on my birthday. 30 seems like a big number at the time. As you now know, man, is that young. But anyways,
too young.
And I remember I was so bored. I couldn't even come up with a new way to goof off. All the websites I would check out every day, I'd looked at them. Whatever I did to distract myself from building web pages, which I could do, and I was okay at it, but it wasn't I wasn't passionate about it. It was just a way to pay rent. And I remember I had this thought. I'm like, if you don't get out of this chair right now, you're going to turn 40 and you'll be sitting here in this little office underground. You'll be so bored. You really won't know how to goof off, and that's another 10 years of your life gone. And you only get one shot at life, and it really hit me tons and tons and tons of bricks. It was a real reality check. And sorry, got to keep the cigar going.
Yeah, keep it going.
So there was this website, The Truth About Cars, that I really liked the guy. There was only one guy at the time that wrote for it, and I wrote him, and I said, hey, I'm interested in this. And he said, okay, write a review. Figure it out. Find a car somehow. Write a review. And I did. And I sent it to him, and it came back full of red ink. And I was kind of hurt because I fancied myself this brilliant writer, but I mean, looking back, the ego I had to think that the first thing I wrote wouldn't need a single edit, you know what I mean? But it took, all right. It took me a little while, but I swallowed my pride. I pulled it out. I looked at his changes and I said, yeah, actually they make a lot of sense. And I sent it back to him and he said, okay, this is pretty good. Great. I'll send you a press car and I'll pay you. I think it was $5 a review. So maybe it was 20. I can't remember, but what's the difference between 5 and 20? Yeah. nothing, right? So, but I started, and then it turned out this other website I really liked called Jalopnik. This guy I'd met, true story, I met him at Jumbo's Clown Room, which is a strip club in Hollywood. A friend of mine, she's like, hey, I'm going on a date with this guy I met on Friendster, and he wants to go to Jumbo's, which is cool, but like, I don't know, maybe come along just in case he's weird, because odds are if you meet a guy on Friendster.
Right. It's the beginning of a very interesting story plot.
Yeah. So I came, and so the date didn't go so well, but me and Davey Johnson, we spent 4 hours outside, like chain smoking and talking about cars, just cars, punk rock and cars.
Right.
That was, yeah. And so like the third thing I wrote for this other website, Truth About Cars, he reposted it on Jalopnik, and you know, he got in touch with me, and I was like, I love Jalopnik. He's like, yeah. And so anyways, I wound up working for them, and sorry, I'm pausing for the.
So what job did you get for Jalopnik? Just writing.
Same thing,
pieces?
writing. Yeah. And Jalopnik back then was this weird little site. It was. We always said it was the velvet underground of car blogs, because nobody read it, but everyone who did read it is now a professional automotive journalist. It had this outsized influence for the first 2 years. And if we contributed anything to the culture of cars, and I think we did, and I'm going to sound pretentious, but without being too pretentious, and I should say Davey has since passed away, and I said this at his funeral. What we did was we made it okay to not just like Shelbys, and to not just like Corvettes, and to not just like Ferraris. Like, it's just as legitimate to be a car geek about a Citroen DS or, you know, whatever, as it is to say that a C2 Corvette with a, you know, big block is really cool. And I think
inclusivity.
Yeah. And I noticed, and you know, working in the car business, I noticed that like a huge outsized proportion of the industry is gay, but they're just, they didn't have a place. There was,
Really?
you couldn't really openly be gay at Car and Driver. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just, it was Michigan.
makes
You
sense.
can't do that. Now you can. And
Right,
and now most people in the business are more out, if
Right.
not totally out. But and I feel like we gave a voice to a lot of not just gay people, but a lot of people that just didn't
Didn't fit in a box.
didn't fit in the stereotypical Carroll Shelby is God, Paul Newman's the coolest, I love Steve McQueen, blah blah. We were all fine, you know, whatever, and that's all great, but it's not what it's about. There's about a lot more than that, and people are passionate about all sorts of cars for all sorts of reasons, and it's not just like kind of hunky athletic white guys. There's a lot of other people that can love and appreciate cars.
Right.
And so
It's
I think
interesting how
yeah.
everything is analogous to life, man. Like, even what was happening in the car industry, or and how people looked at things, and being inclusive, separating, judging people for liking what they like the same things people preach about in other areas.
No,
same
totally.
thing.
I on the way over here, I was
interesting.
on a phone call with a friend of mine. He's starting a new car publication. I don't know if he wants it public yet, but he's saying what they want to do is really foster LBG. I butcher it. I sound like such a moron when I do this, but gay and lesbian and trans and queer and bisexual car riders and people of color and women, especially women. And we struggle with this at Motor Trend. We're like, we want to hire these people. There aren't any, because Motor Trend's kind of, I don't want to say big league, but we're one of the buff books, right?
Yes.
We're big league. And we desperately, our boss is a Chinese American guy, and we want more, just diversity. And it's just, so my friend was like, I'm starting a farm team. I'm going to feed the big players. And we're actively recruiting, which is, sadly, we don't have the time or money anymore to like develop people. We need you to like show up and be ready to, professional, go.
Right.
And it's a problem industry wide, and not just on the journalism side, but on the automakers. They need much more diverse talent. So anyways, this is all a long-winded way of saying, I wrote for Jalopnik back in the day.
Real quick, before you go on, I just want to say, I did not know. I'm going to learn a lot of sides about you I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't do any research. I like that. I like to interview people and let them tell their stories. So I don't come in with any. Plus, I'm not a judgmental person at all. I don't judge anything you might believe, but I had no idea this side would come out that, it's a car. You're a car guy, right? So Never did I think, oh, we're going to be talking about diversity, inclusion, which for me, I'm also like a progressive male, sort of like, like I think we're all powerful. Women should be empowering themselves in whatever way they want. Like I have a very strong wife. You mentioned you had a very strong wife. Like I have a lot of strong women in my life. There's one right there that's in my videographer's and producer's life. But
so
I love that, dude, because that I'm going to tell you later, but even the documentary we're working on the film side is this female, I don't want to give up to a female pianist, world class, that's been shunned by the industry for having a child.
Sure. Oh yeah,
let's say,
God forbid. Yeah.
And it's all these projects. The whiskey project, we're working on our labels. I would like to show you maybe either on the podcast or after or whenever. We got our first drafts. Super strong women. Right, it's a film-based, like film posters sort of concept.
Yeah, I saw the deck.
It's like, hey, like we're not trying to be like a feminist company. Like we're not like, hey, let's ride this feminist. No, we're like, hey, why does it have to be a male heroine? Why can't it be a strong woman that's not overly like or heavily underdressed? Like, why can't it be a different character?
I just
why can't
think
it be diverse?
My thing with diversity is like you're just missing out on so much talent by only going to the same talent pool.
Absolutely.
And look, I'm lucky. Like I'm Jewish, so I'm not exactly mainstream, but I was able, when I was reading car magazines as a kid, I could look at them and like they pretty much looked like me and my dad's friends, right? So I was like, that's something I could be. But a friend of mine, he's Ralph Gilles. He's the head of design for Stellantis, which is now like one of the biggest car companies on earth. But he designed the Dodge Challenger and the Dodge Charger. Black guy from Montreal, by way of Haiti. And a friend of mine works at a university, and she was trying to get people of color students for a scholarship, and she's like, we're really struggling to find like black kids who want to go to college and draw cars. So I'm like, well, let me call Ralph, because he's a black guy who this is what he does. And he said it's a real problem. He's like, I can't find them. He's like, and as an industry, we can't find them. So you're just missing out on like so much talent. And like, I just think humans, if you just give them a chance, doesn't matter where they are, where they're from, who they are, they can all shine and blossom and do great things. It's like, why are we like not having everybody participate? And by the way, if you're really like, free market, like give everybody as much buying power as possible. It's actually the most capitalistic thing in the world is to give everyone wealth, make everyone wealthy.
Absolutely.
So I'm a big believer in that. And again, I just feel it's a shame to like lock people out of opportunity. So
there's enough for everyone, man. Like
absolutely,
opportunity builds opportunity.
Absolutely,
you give people opportunity, they create jobs, they create more opportunity.
Absolutely.
There's not like a scarcity really if you empower people to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, build their own wealth instead of trying to keep them down with bullshit fucking rules and policy. I'm with you, man. And as a as a white male, like I think of it like I want more diversity so I can be unique. Like it's like you said, man, there's opportunity for everyone. Everyone's got a different story. I want to hear all those stories.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear the same fucking story over and over. It doesn't enrich me. It doesn't make me a better player in this game at all, man.
So anyways, back to my start.
Beautiful,
so I did that Jalopnik, and then it sort of fell apart. It was still going. It's just they really changed their direction. So I was out of there. I went to this site Autoblog, which at the time was this juggernaut. It was just like if you wanted car news, it was like just a lot of young people that were not paid that well, but like, God, did we work? I was saying the other night I had to like write 3 stories in like a couple hours. It was this crunchy deadline I forgot about. And I was telling my manager, I'm just like, man, it's nice that I can reactivate those muscles, because with Autoblog, we'd go to cover a car show, like we'd be in Geneva, jet lag, but you had to publish. Not even you had to, but we had a contest. Who could publish the most stories, in a day? So like, we were doing like 12 stories a day each, which is insanity. Insane. It's totally insane. So, but that was a great lesson, and it really got my name out there because it was such a big publication. And then it was early May of 2010. This guy named Angus McKenzie, who at the time was editor-in-chief of Motor Trend, basically said, you want to be, the senior editor, yes or no? And I said, I should talk to my wife, but he kind of tricked me. He said, come down and have lunch. Actually, at first he said, come down and have lunch, and he offered me a different job, and it wasn't quite enough money. I was about to get married. And he said, well, just keep this door open. And he invited me down for lunch again, and I came into his office, and he said, shut the door. He says, yes or no, right now, senior editor. And I said, I should call my wife, but let's say yes. Let's go have lunch, and I'll tell her afterwards. And then it's been almost 11 years. It'll be 11 years next month, and it's great, and I've done, like, I've already had a dream career packed into a decade, and I'm I met these kids up on Angeles Crest yesterday. They're in their 20s and they're shooting a video of a Camaro, and I pulled over because I like Camaros, and I was like, hey, and they're like, oh my God, it's you, blah blah blah, like, we're the next generation, and I'm like, hey, dudes, I'm not dead yet, like, I still got a lot to do. And it was a funny moment. So anyways, yeah. So that's, since then, I've been at Motor Trend. We had shows that were really successful. This one show, Head to Head, it went, I think, 9 seasons. We got onto Netflix for a time, and now I'm still doing Motor Trend, and I recently joined Spike's Car Radio, which is a podcast I do with this guy Spike Ferenston, who everyone knows because he was I think the head writer on Seinfeld, but he wrote the Soup Nazi episode. So very funny guy. So I'm learning a lot about comedy from him. And and I like
what's next?
I don't know.
Do you have, like,
this is recent, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I know.
I don't know. I don't know what's next. I mean, I'm pretty happy. Like, I'm busy. I'm a little too busy.
Yeah. But we're always, like, you're always too busy, right? Because I'm always too busy.
Yeah. Well,
it's just who we are.
Specifically,
you're doing what you like.
What's next tomorrow?
Yeah.
There's this new thing called the Hypercar Invitational.
Okay.
And it's up at Laguna Seca. It's a racetrack up in Northern California, or in Monterey, not that northern. But they get a lot of, like, very wealthy car collectors together, and it's 2 days of driving their extremely expensive cars on a racetrack with coaches and no sound limit. And so they've invited me to be part of it, and I'm going to be hosting the dinners and some Q&As and stuff like that. And this is something, I have friends that do stuff like this, and I've always wanted to do it because I've hosted a few panels and I really enjoy it. I like asking questions and getting the audience to participate, and and I think I'm a pretty good storyteller. So
yes,
so it's going to be a lot of fun. And, I like hypercars, and that's, like, there'll be, like, I think 8 or 9 Bugattis there, so kind of something you don't see every day.
Right.
Yeah. Especially driving on a track. You might see like 2 Bugattis parked on the street, but not moving. And these are going to be flying around a track. So should be very
drive
cool.
Any of them?
I'll drive something. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I've driven, the other reason they want me is I've driven all those things that are going to be there. And I think most of the guys that own them, they know who I am, and I can talk to me about it.
Right.
So, but I'll make it on the track. I'll be on there.
What about, like, okay, so I want to get more into, like, just how you made these changes and, like, what helped you, how your experience could help others, maybe, because I feel like I feel like I'm 10 years or at that maybe 7 years ago for you, where opportunities started happening. You mentioned, like, you were writing, didn't work out the way you necessarily wanted right away. Yeah. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
You got to believe you're on the right track and kind of have faith, because it ain't going to be pretty. It's not like someone's going to come up and say, hey man, you should have your own podcast. And you know what? How about you, like, take over the fucking writing for Motor Trend, right? No one's gonna say, I see that in you.
Yeah.
You
No. It was a track record. I spent 5 years making very little money. And I remember the lowest point of my life was, like, April of 2008. So I was, like, the Great Recession, and I had this gig that was going to happen, and then just didn't happen. And I remember it was April 1st, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, I can't remember, like $300 or $400 short of rent. I'm laying next to my wife, and I'm like, I've made a huge mistake, but I just kept my nose on the grindstone and pulled out of it. And I remember the night I asked my wife to marry me, and I turned to her and I said, and it was like the day after Obama got elected. So we were kind of like, very, well, we were drunk, but we were in a very, good state of mind, and I said, before I asked her to marry me, I'm like, look, I'm going to quit my job, my full-time job. I'm going to do cars full-time. We're going to be really poor for a while. And she was like, I've been poor my whole life. Like, what's the difference? You know, like I won't even notice.
Ride or die,
You know,
baby.
yeah. So I was lucky, and so yeah.
That is not a tempting proposal typically.
No, I know.
I love how it also tells you a lot about the relationship you guys have.
Mhm.
My wife is also just as nuts because she realized like, okay, I'm not gonna necessarily agree with everything you want, but I know you're not gonna be happy. So, and I try to do whatever I can to allow her to do what she wants.
Yeah.
It's a give and take.
Yeah. For sure.
know?
For sure. I mean, and this was, you know, I don't know.
What kept you going during those times? Were you like,
some
I can't
idiotic
go back, or
I couldn't go back because going back meant sitting back down at that desk, which,
right?
you know, being stuck in this little room.
Me too.
And
I have the same story as you, by the way.
yeah,
I'll tell you later. But that's why I'm watching you. Like, oh man, this is the future. Like, not that I'm very happy, but it's that time where, you know, we're not launched yet. But it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting before you make it. You got to embrace it because it could be stressful, but it doesn't have to be. And seeing other people, not just you, but even others, artists that took a chance, photographers that moved out here when they were 18, didn't have anywhere to stay, didn't have a gig, didn't even know they loved photography yet.
Right.
And then they fucking found something and they found their obsession, and now they're, you know, self-sufficient, making money, making a career, place to stay. That's the goal. If you can do what you love and survive and hopefully prosper, because I think ultimately if you can pay your dues up front, you're going to make much more. Even if money is driving you,
the
you're
money
make
comes.
a lot more money, and the success will be deeper, more fulfilling with people that you want to be around. Because if you're not being authentic to what you like, you're going to be around people that. How many meetings where you're like, oh my God, and you're nodding like, but you're like, just shoot me.
Yeah, no, I really don't have that anymore.
Right, before in corporate, I'm saying.
Oh God, yeah.
Right?
I mean, and like Motor Trend's fairly corporate, but it's all. But again, we mostly talk about cars. I mean, at the end of the day,
you're in your realm, man.
Yeah,
with the people that have similar mindsets and likes. And the fact that they're supportive of your progressive outlook is huge, man. I didn't know. I don't know anything about Motor Trend. So
I mean, look, you know, we're owned by Discovery. I have no idea how you know, I don't know what their corporate progressive rating is, but the people I work with are all very, very cool, you know. What kept me going, I don't know, you know, it's funny. I never really looked back, but looking back now, as I was a kid, I mean, I always thought I would be a writer. I always loved cars. I always thought I would be a writer, and I thought I'd be a musician. I thought I'd be in a band, playing bass, touring the world.
Not
and so
too
that didn't. No, it might be, but that didn't work out. You know, and I always, and whenever people say, "Oh my God," like, you know, like you're so successful or whatever, you have my dream job. I'm like, I didn't get my dream job, but I got a job when I was
almost as good.
I was you know, my mom passed away about a year ago, and I was cleaning out the house, and I just found some journals that I had written in high school, and I was writing. Not quite car reviews, but I was writing like short stories but they were all like, you know, there was, you know, whatever plot there was, like 60% of it was like, and then he was in the Mark II Volkswagen GTI, which had this much horsepower and this much torque. And I was, you know, I was very focused on cars. So I don't know. I just, it was something I thought I could do. I really did think I could do it. And it's funny, you know, I went to college, and I thought I would be a writer, and I thought I'd be like, I don't know, like a fiction writer, but it just never really worked out. I never really tried that hard, and I was a moron in high school. I just fucked around in high school way too much, and I missed out on some like polishing in my writing ability that would have been very helpful. So when I got to college, I excelled. I did very well, but I had a little bit of remedial, like just like punctuation and just stuff like that. I probably do have like a mild form of dyslexia. I'm not 100% sure. I've never been diagnosed, but like I screw up this, like I can't spell the word necessary. I don't know why, but you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. So
2 C's, 1 C.
Yeah, there's too many C's.
Yeah,
too many.
It's not that important nowadays.
It's not. But when I was trying to write fiction, I was like handing stuff in, like applying to schools for an MFA, and I was handing stuff in where, you know, it just wasn't polished, and they're like, "There's typos. You can't be handing in typos." So, anyways, like I I knew I could write, and I wound up having a lot of success as a writer, you know, and it's been great. And then I wound up having a lot of success doing video, you know. It's like,
sorry to interrupt, but I love the little sub story of it's not going to always be like you're this prodigy, like writer, musician for you to be in that field. Like I have 4 boys. I am convinced, and they're now convinced, luckily, do what you love. Like my 16-year-old loves basketball. So usually parents say, well, have a backup. I'm like, no, like, I mean, he gets good grades, but he loves the industry, the fashion, the smell of the gym. He loves to work out. He's very, you know, so I'm like, play as hard as you can. If you love it, try to get to as high of a level and then be in the industry. If you decide you want to be a lawyer, go ahead. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be in the fashion of the NBA, figure out those paths. Like, but why not follow it? It's a $1 billion industry.
Oh, totally.
Cars are because I know people that love cars that think
trillions.
Oh, it's not I can't. Why? Why is that not a viable? Especially if you're like 18 or 20.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You're living at home. Go work for somebody that's in the industry.
Yeah, you know? I mean, it's funny. When I was 25, my dad died pretty suddenly, and my
mom died at 25.
Yeah, it was rough, and it was right after 9/11. Well, actually, he died right before 9/11, but I lost my job just after 9/11. I worked for a software company, and I remember like, all right, got to figure something out to do, and I remember I cold called Motor Trend, and I wound up speaking to a guy that I used to work with. And he's like, well, you can't just come work for us. You got to start somewhere else. And I was too young and stupid to hear that. I was like, well, they don't want me like at the top, then, you know, screw them. But it was good advice. And the other, honestly, the best advice I ever got in life was from my bass teacher, this guy, Brad Cobb. And he said, nobody's born with it. That's bullshit.
Love it.
He goes, it's practice.
Right.
Everything is practice, you know. Having a little bit of natural talent helps, but like the great bass players, the guys you like, they sat in their room for 5 years by themselves, smoking a bong, playing bass. Right. That's why they're good at it. You know, that's what it is. That's the discipline. And
I was fooled by Hollywood growing up.
Sure.
Because they always sensationalize the magic touch or the natural. And you go,
or getting bit by a spider.
Getting, which is cool. It's fun. It's more exciting.
It's a good story. Yeah.
It's more exciting than hours of film of them working out and getting beat down and not making the team. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
but when you dig deeper behind all the stories, like Michael Jordan, anybody, well, maybe not LeBron. He just was a freak, but some people are. But that's 1 in a billion, man. There's 1 in a billion LeBron.
Right.
For every LeBron, there's work. It's all practice.
Yeah. No,
the ones that made it practice their fun. And that's why, by the way, passion is everything. Meaning, if you don't pick something you're obsessed about, you're just not going to put in the work. That's the equation.
Right.
That's why people go, I want to make money. Yeah, but I know a lot of lawyers that are making 100K tops. They can't get past that. It's not a bad salary, but they're miserable and they hate their life.
Oh, I know lawyers that make millions that are miserable.
Yeah.
Millions.
The money doesn't solve all the levels on the equalizer. It's only one.
So a lot of people ask me, especially like on Instagram, they're like, you know, how do I get your job? You know, and I'm like, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear, but check this out. Mm-hmm. There was a year where I would get up at 6 a.m. and I would write about cars until about 2 a.m. And then I would go to bed and I'd wake up again and I had no life. And that's what I did for about a year. And it was not only, I loved writing and I loved cars, so it wasn't that much of a sacrifice. But I gave up a lot, you know, and I really put in the work and it paid off. But I'm like, you can't just start where I started. I didn't start where I started.
Right. Yeah. I didn't start where I started.
I was making, I think, I want to say Truth About Cars was like, I think it was like $5 a post. Maybe it was 20 or 25 a review. And like Jalopnik, I forget that. But like Autoblog, I remember it was $25 a post when I started. And they were like, you know, if you want to make more money, we're owned by AOL Autos, and you can write these really boring, dry things for AOL Autos. And I'm like, okay. And I wrote 2, and I was like, you know what? I just can't do it. It's not me. I can't do it. Because they're like, oh, it's great. But, you know, your keyword density is about 4%. You really need to have about 8% keyword density. And I'm like, bro, I'm talking about Lamborghinis. No keyword density. No, you know, like, and I just couldn't do it. And I turned down some actually really good money for doing this roboticized SEO writing. It's just not me.
Right.
You know, somebody's doing it. Somebody, AOL Autos, I think, is still around. Somebody's writing it. But
authentic. You got to be authentic, man.
But you also have to be able to like get though. I don't know if I've actually done 10,000 hours, but you always hear that 10,000 hour thing.
Mm-hmm.
I put in hours and hours, and it sounds ridiculous, but I remember it was like alarm would go off at 6. By the way, I was young enough where I could still do this. Now, pass out on the couch by 9 every night.
Good life.
Yeah, but you know, and it was like 9 till about 2 in the morning. I was writing about cars or researching or something about cars. You know, and I really put in that time.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly, man. I always talk about the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize the Beatles had this fucked up gig for like a year where they played some ridiculous amount of hours at some dive nobody knew about, but they got like 12 hours of play or more a day, like 5 days. And that's how they weren't that good. They were playing, you know, cover songs, and that's how they got good. They didn't just come out and smash the world, man.
Yeah. And again, I've seen, you know, back to music, or you know, sticking with music, I've seen, you know, players that like blow my mind. I have this friend, Dave Drake, and he doesn't even play bass anymore, but when he was playing bass, I've just never seen anyone play like this. But also, I wound up living with him, and he sat in his room for, I don't know, 10 hours a day, stoned out of his mind, playing bass. And he just did that. And he just played and played and played and played. And that's what it took. And I was an okay bass player, and I'm okay. But, you know, when I'm good, if I'm getting like 2 hours a day, that's a lot. And it's not enough to perform at the level I want to perform at, you know. And
you enjoy it at the hobby level.
Yeah.
That's why I tell my kids, if you like even video games, one of my kids right now, I'm really letting him explore the video game path. Because I'm like, fine, if you're
bigger than Hollywood. Yeah. Bigger than Hollywood.
If you're gonna build your like a career, meaning if you're doing productive things on the computer while you're playing, like streaming, trying to build an audience, I'll let you play. So I go, if you're only willing to play, like when you have those days you can play, if you're only willing to play 3 hours and you're done and you're not really working on your craft, you're never gonna be like a professional gamer. So just play it like a hobby. That's okay.
Right.
But I'm letting him. I go, I'm not going to tell you can't be a professional video gamer or be in the video game industry, because that's a fucking juggernaut right now, dude.
It's crazy. Yeah. Well, I would also say this though. I would also say this though. I also got lucky. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I
made your luck though.
Well, yeah, in one way, but I will say this, I was lucky to get the opportunities, but then once I had them, I didn't say no. I was just telling this kid this yesterday. I'm like, when you're given an opportunity, never say no. I don't care if you feel like it or not. You just say yes, and you do it, you know. And then like, and deadlines are deadlines. Like if you, and I was the other wonderful career advice I got when I was at Jalopnik. My boss was this guy, Mike Spinelli, he's a genius, and he's a great guy, and I miss him, but he's around. We just don't work together anymore. But I had a thing I wrote, and I had this column, and I turned it in every week. Right. It got turned in Tuesday, got published Wednesday every week. And then I went on a date or God knows what happened, but like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a day late. I remember he just like wrote me back. We were using, you know, AOL Instant Messenger or whatever. And he like all caps, every week means every week. And I was like, oh, so I stayed up all night and I finished it. And I learned that. It's like, you know, now that said, do I blow deadlines these days?
Sure.
Like, yeah, I have a kid and life is more complicated.
We were just talking about that today before you came, because Stephanie showed up with Josh. She's got other stuff, but she's been taking opportunities that have been coming up that a lot of young people I know, even me when I was young, would have been like, well, I don't see the short-term benefit in that. And we talked about, I go, good for you, because you know what? You fucking show up. She asked me before this, hey, that documentary I was telling you about with the pianist.
Yeah.
She said, hey, can I just show up to the set and just kind of watch? Is that okay? And I'm like, hell yeah. I said, look, nobody asks. Nobody fucking asks. They're trying to teach people about classical music ultimately. They want people to understand the power and merge it, you know, with hip hop and make it cool. But nobody's, you know, breaking down the doors to watch us film it.
Sure.
So just asking and showing up.
Yeah.
And dude, people don't show up, man.
That is one of the
things I've noticed with the younger generation. and I'm encouraging them to show up because it's just fear. They're afraid they're not going to be good enough. That what if this person thinks I'm good, but they don't know that I'm a piece of shit? That's what I would think.
Oh, everyone thinks that. Everyone thinks that. Yeah.
Show up anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're a piece of shit.
Whatever you think about the man, my favorite quote, and it's my favorite Woody Allen quote, is 80% of success is showing up. That's just what it is. The last 20% is like sweat equity and all this other stuff
and some luck, some
talent.
Like you said,
yeah.
And I love that you appreciate, because I do think we're lucky because we got 4 fucking limbs and a brain that works pretty fucking well. We could have been fucking fucked up.
Yeah.
And we are so lucky. So let's take advantage. But it's good to appreciate the luck, because some people are born fucking homeless with abuse their whole life and never get out, never even are thinking about a podcast because they're just trying to fucking make ends meet. We're definitely lucky.
Yeah.
But like you said, man, 80% is showing up.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. You kind of made your luck. If you wouldn't have shown up, you would have been doing, web design right now.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know how long that would have lasted, but some other thing.
Dude, I was in audit, by the way, just to give you a little taste of what an internal audit is, what I was doing.
Yeah.
In a cubicle office
environment. Oh, that sounds worse than what I was doing.
I just had
At least I was around artists and stuff.
Yeah. I just had flashbacks, bro. You don't even know the Nelson Mandela prison sentence I did, man.
No, I was there. That's too long, but I was there. I was there.
I went 10 more years than you, man.
Like I said, I'll never forget. I was sitting in my little tiny, it was an office, but it was a tiny little underground office. And I just had this realization, like if you don't get up right now, like you're done, you'll be here in 10 more years.
So to get into the details of that, just curious. Did you literally quit that day, or did you literally go?
No, I started looking. And I sent an email to this guy Robert Farrago that day when I had that thought. Yeah, because I would read all these car sites, and and look, part of me,
I could fucking.
I had enough ego to be like, I could do better. Not just that, I could do better than that. My opinion is so important.
You fucking have to. You know that.
I thought I had something to say.
You have to be delusionally confident, because if you're not, you're gonna go, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then you're never gonna try.
Right.
At least fall on your face.
And then, but I wound up like, I would. I abuse CalArts a little bit. I'm sorry, CalArts, but I would do car stuff while I was sitting in my office. You know what I mean? It wasn't. I ran 2 websites. It wasn't a ton of work. It wasn't a ton of work. Right. At times it was.
Hey, we've all been there, man.
Yeah. But
I was doing audit the whole time, man. I could not have survived.
Yeah, no. But like, when I said I was, and everyone's like, "Wow, you really wrote about cars from 6 to 2. It's like, well, I actually woke up at 6. I wrote till about 9, showered, ran out of the house, got to work late around 10:30, did like whatever 20 minutes of busy work I had a day, and then wrote about cars, drove home, and then wrote from about 7 until 2 in the morning.
I feel like we could collaborate on a book, and it would be almost the same description of events, but different circumstances, man. But
I think a lot of people did that.
People do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're dying inside.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things, when I got out of college, I just didn't really have a plan. I thought, I was like, oh, maybe law school, maybe I'll get an MFA in writing, maybe I'll do this. And then, you make decisions. Like I had a girlfriend at the time in San Francisco, so it's like, I have to go to San Francisco. Right. I didn't have to go to San Francisco, but I felt I had to in my 22-year-old mind, right?
How could you not?
Yeah.
The love of your life.
It could have been. Yeah.
You may never meet.
Right.
I had the same. I got married.
Yeah.
I've been married before.
Okay. Yeah. So and I just didn't really have a plan, and then, like I said, it took me turning 30, and I don't know. I just felt some timer ticking, and I just knew. This is what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly, what it would look like. And I've actually had a lot more success than I ever thought possible. Honestly, I just lucked out. But it's crazy. It's like.
So that's an interesting point, because we like to say, when you try something, it never turns out the way you thought.
Never.
It's either going to be worse or way fucking better than you imagined. Sometimes, sometimes but you're never gonna know if you don't try, right? It's a catch-22. But I didn't have any plan for getting out of corporate. I fumbled around with different businesses while trying to juggle my ex household that I'm still trying to help because I have 3 kids there and here
Sure,
half
sure,
the
sure.
time and
Yeah.
trying to maintain my household. So I needed cash flow. So I was like, I got into film production a little bit at a time without any master plan, with people telling me, what are you doing? You're going to be a film producer, like putting me down. I'm like, you know what? And by then I had met enough artists. That's why I love artists so much, to go, you know what? Shut up. I don't want to hear it. And I would say, even if you think I'm delusional, fuck it.
Right.
I can't do it unless I am. And I have
Right.
to kind of psych myself up like before a football game, like, let's go. Because you need direction and confidence to succeed. And if you're missing one of those, you're kind of fucked. Like if you know you want to be a car guy, but you're like, I suck, you're not going to do it. If you have confidence, but you don't know where, you're just, oh, I'm the best, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I was delusional enough that when someone did put me down, and it was pretty rare, you know, but it's like, okay, now it's my mission to prove you wrong. You really shouldn't have said that,
Right.
because I wasn't even thinking this way. But you know what? Now my new goal for the year is I will, you know, and I had this, I'm not even going to say where or who, but I had this horrendous boss in the car business where I was like, hey, like if this website is writing about Lamborghinis, like we should. And he's like, what? You think you're good enough to write about Lamborghinis? Well, now I drove here in a Lamborghini. I'm very good friends with, well, he actually did now the former, but the Stefan Domenicali was the former CEO of Lamborghini, but Maurizio Reggioni, you know, we text each other. He's the head of R&D for Lamborghini. Misha Borkert is the head of design for Lamborghini. He's a buddy of mine. Before the pandemic, there's me and 3 other journalists. We would go 6 months before the cars were even like known. We would fly to this little secret test track in the boot of the, or the heel of the boot of Italy. And I'd be the first American to drive the brand new Lamborghinis. And I mean, I drove the Centenario, the Performante, the Urus, which is parked out front. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, yes, I'm driving Lamborghini. Yeah. And then,
like,
yeah.
oh, really?
And he who shall remain nameless, like, fuck you. I'm good enough to drive Lamborghinis. You know what I mean? And,
Hell yeah.
and I kind of made it my mission, like, you know, and,
why not? Because why not have fun in this game?
I was just like so
it's like
appalled.
those players that talk shit, and
Yeah.
then the team goes, "Oh, thank you. Let's put that up on our fucking
Yeah,
board."
it's been in the
Look what
back
this
of my
motherfucker
head.
said to you. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you for saying that, because we're gonna fucking
It's the
use
best thing.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't even have to hate them. You can
Mm.
be like, "I love you for
Mm.
pumping me up."
I
You know
do
what I
hate
mean?
this person. I will say there's
Or you can
very few people I hate. This is
You have
one.
the right.
For a lot of
You
reasons,
seem like a nice
not just
person.
that, but
Yeah.
it was like the response was. I remember sitting there. I was just like speechless. I'm like, how can someone be so cruel? Like how, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, I got to give props to Greg Curtis. It's not his quote, but he just recently said, "Success is the greatest form of revenge." I think it's Frank Sinatra. That's fucking true
Yeah.
as fuck. And it's not that you should let revenge drive you. But if you're a competitive person, it's okay. I've actually embraced this recently because I've been trying to be emotionally intelligent. But I'm like, you know what? It's okay to use some fire, man, like competitive fire when somebody does
Yeah.
put you down and go, all right, I'm going to use that to like get up early and do some more sets or whatever, or write some more articles. Or you know what? I'm going to go ahead and contact Lamborghini. Fuck you.
I had another one. It's just funny how these things stick with you. Like when after college, I was backpacking around Europe, as you do, with a buddy of mine, and we were in Nice, and we were trying to walk to Monaco. There's this path you can walk, and we were there in like July, and it was over 100, and we were just dressed wrong. We had these stupid giant backpacks, and we're like, we didn't bring any water with us, and we're like dehydrated. We're like on these cliffs, you know, in between the town's called Cap d'Al, the Garlic Cape, and and there was this like, you know, yacht club. And I remember I went in there just to buy some overpriced Avion, right? But I'll never forget, this guy looked at me as if I was like a mangy dog. Like it was a customer, you know,
Yeah.
like the kids who sold me the water, they were fine. But
Yeah.
this guy, he was wearing like a white linen suit, and he had like gold slick back hair, and his skin was bronze, you know, and he didn't say anything, he just gave me this look. And then fast forward, I was on the launch of the second version of the 7th gen Rolls-Royce Phantom. And we're staying in Cap d'All, like right next to where that club was. I remember the club. And we're in this ridiculous, like 8-room hotel that's like in the Mediterranean. It literally juts out. Like the Beatles used to stay there. Princess Grace, when the palace was full, she'd put guests in this hotel. And I'm like, fuck you, buddy. Like, I'm back.
This one's for you.
I'm back. You know,
Cheers.
yeah. And like, so I'm not a dog, it turns out.
Right.
You know, and I do belong to be here
Absolutely,
as much as anyone
man.
else. Yeah.
Absolutely,
So,
man. Breaking.
That was, it was just, because like, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, Rolls Royce is like, come on the trip. And they might have said where it was. I didn't really realize it, but I get there. I'm like, I know where I am. So I remember we're backpacking past this hotel, nearly dying of dehydration. You know, I'm like, oh my God. And then we jumped on these Chris Craft boats that look like Rivas, or these, you know, these wood hulled boats. And we went from there to Monaco for dinner via boat. And it was, you know, look, I obviously I can't afford any of that, blah, blah, blah. But it was like,
but
you know.
you used, it's like, I like to turn negatives into positives.
Yeah, absolutely.
You used his negativity to go, I'm going to have the best fucking time ever, just to fuck him in my mind, kind of like, I'm gonna show you a fucking dog. Like,
yeah, I just didn't like being looked at like that. Yeah. By the way, man. How's this cigar?
Really good. Man.
Yeah, these are
as you can see,
Britannicas. That's why Britannicas are. Those are
great segue,
solid.
By the way, because I want to pour something.
Yeah,
and I don't want to interrupt our flow.
Yeah.
It's a good. You don't need like a bathroom break or anything.
No, I'm good.
We can keep going.
I'm good.
You can keep talking. Do you know what you want? Because
I have a bottle of this. My buddy gave me for my birthday. Have not opened it.
Yep.
I've had this.
Yep.
This one, if it's an 18-year rye, could be really good. So yeah, here I'll.
Lock, stock.
Yeah.
Lock, stock, and barrel, man. I've never had this.
Yeah, let's try it.
Let's
try it. I have no idea what 18 years is. Pretty old for a rye.
18 years.
It's pretty dark, so it could be like over oaked.
Yes, because I did hear from like an expert, and I don't know if they're right, but that do I need to get a
I think you can maybe pull that. I think you can pull that.
I might need a corkscrew. Oh, maybe.
You should be able to pull it.
Coming,
yeah.
That 8 is kind of, or after 8 it's like unnecessary.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, I've had some 25-year ryes that are like outstanding, but they're rare.
All right.
You know, they're rare.
You tell me, like I said.
All right. Yeah.
Although I'm co-founder of a whiskey brand, I am a novice.
Well, I have maybe a bit too much expertise with this. That's plenty for me. Yeah.
There you go, sir.
Okay.
No ice, I take it.
Oh, not for me. All
right. I'll be honest. I usually put ice.
That's okay.
But I'm not going to put
try it without, and if you need ice, put ice in it, you know. I'm
also pouring for our team.
Sure.
Stephanie, you should have a little bit just for company, just a sip. I know you're not like a whiskey drinker like Josh over here, but all right, Stephanie, this is for you. If you want more, do not hesitate to ask. You can do whatever.
I don't think it needs ice. It's bracing, but it's not doesn't need ice.
I would try it to see what it tastes like. Before you try it, let's let Johnny walk us through.
Wow.
Could you?
Yeah.
Because I kind of know, but
it's hot. So in other words, the alcohol, it's alcohol forward. But it's good. And actually, if for a rye, and this is something you can get by aging ryes. Ryes tend to have this like they can be very spicy, and they can also have like kind of a canned vegetable taste to them when they're young. And so this doesn't have that at all. Spicy, but not overly spicy. And it has plenty of like caramel and good sweetness to it, which a lot of ryes aren't known for being sweet. And I'm a bourbon guy. Rye is kind of a subset of bourbon. It's made with corn, but it has, more, not always made with corn, but usually made with some corn. So some sweetness. And then, you get sugar from the barrels, right? So it's in oak, and it picks up, the color and a lot of flavor. And that's a debate maybe for the whiskey podcast, but some people, 60% of the flavor comes from barrel. I'm in the camp that it's about 99% of the flavor comes out of the barrel. I'm a big believer in barrels. But no, this is good, and you can see the legs on it. That means the length of the drips on the glass.
Right.
So that's age. There's a lot of sugars in there, wood sugars that are clinging and sticking. So you can see the age and the proof. I'm gonna guess on this. It's not too bad. It's probably like, I don't know. I'm gonna look. I'm not gonna guess because I'll be totally wrong. Let's see here. This is 54.5, so 109 proof. I was gonna say 107. I should have said it, but not
Packs a
bad.
punch.
Yeah. It's hot. It's a hot one.
So did you try some yet? Just take like, breathe it, like let it go in your mouth and through your nose a little bit, breathe it. It's very light. It doesn't like sting when I try to breathe it in, and then just take a little couple drops on your tongue.
But I would say you want to be careful of like a drop because it atomizes in your mouth, and then you just get the ethanol. So get some liquid in there, and then you'll get the sugars. Yeah. Well, no, you just just
coat it.
A lot of people they'll like try a sip and they're like, ugh,
right?
You know, and it's like don't do a sip. Don't do like a drop. Do like just a little bit. Get a little liquid in there, and it's good. I like this. This is actually pretty good. This is pretty good. I see, nothing wrong.
Tasty,
and what's interesting, if you told people this was a bourbon, they'd be like, yeah, it's not a rye, it's a bourbon. So and I think that's what you get from the 18 years. Man. Yeah. Because it's been in the barrel so long.
It's not spicy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's smoothed out.
Yeah.
Caramels.
I would also say these glasses are tough, especially for, I'm assuming our young video crew here. It really concentrates the nose. So by doing that, you really get this big ethanol bomb. So I always drink out of like just a highball glass because that way it's more open, lets the oxygen in and out. These are really Scotch glasses, and Scotch tends to be lower proof. Scotch is usually like in the 40 to 45%, something like that. And you can concentrate the flavors because there's just less flavor in Scotch than there is in rye and bourbon. But so it might be a little off-putting at first, but stick with it, and you'll soldier through.
I just gotta say, as the idiot, right? Don't take my word, but most of our customers are gonna be like me, probably, that don't really know. But obviously we want to appeal to the connoisseurs too. But if our rye tastes like this, I'm gonna be fucking super happy.
You guys, I don't know how much I can talk about, but I know where you're sourcing your rye from.
Yeah.
And it'll be a lot better than this.
Awesome. Man.
Yeah, it'll be like I said.
That's what we're hoping.
I listened to that little presentation you guys gave, and I was very hesitant. And then I heard the magic words, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like 100%. Like these guys are legit. They're getting, and because this distillery MGP, I mean, probably the second best rye I've ever had came out of that distillery. The first is from Willet, and it's hard to compete with Willet. That said, that bottle of rye now sells for $10,000, the best one I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I got a poppy cigar too.
Oh, Pappy, yeah. That's a little gimmicky.
That's what I figured.
I had one. I put it out. It's a little gimmicky.
Okay,
it's a little gimmicky. They're okay.
Got one,
they're okay. Yeah, they're okay. It's like, I don't know. Cigars complement bourbon. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like if you're drinking beer, you don't want to eat beer. You want to eat cheese because it complements beer.
Right.
And
cheese and beer, really.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. And so. That was the other thing, by the way, that I thought I would do professionally, and I came very close. Was a brewer. I was a huge. I've been homebrewing since 1993, so almost 30 years. I'm kind of out of it these days, but I was very big in the homebrew world, and I had a couple offers to start, and I thought I would do that. I actually thought that seemed to be the way out of my predicament, and then I just never had the backing, the funding for it.
I would not mind doing an offshoot brewery. It's very similar.
Yeah.
You can literally brew
and it's
beer.
a lot easier to do than distilling, for sure.
The brand would work.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
For some other things too.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you mentioned you're okay with me smoking weed. Is that okay? Because I want to be, I don't always smoke, depending on
legal in California. Last time I checked.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is kind of. It's not like it's my mission to say fuck you to corporate. I have nothing against anyone. I don't really like the way corporations, like some corporations are set up and how they don't really allow people to be themselves enough. I think they're missing something, right? So
Absolutely.
the beard, it's not like I'm doing it for them, but the
Right.
beard, smoking weed, that was like a big, like, kind of moment for me, maybe a fuck you moment a little bit. And it's not like I'm doing it to be a proponent of smoking or anything. It's just I enjoy it. I enjoy having conversations when I'm in tunnel vision with the person. But it clips my safety net because a compliance officer, for a publicly traded company.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
It's usually like, we don't know if that's. There's going to be judgment, but that was just me saying, I'm not going to go back.
Yeah. No, I quit smoking pot when I got to college. I was very into it in high school, and I went to Sonoma State, and we had the best pot in the universe. Was like, I
did the reverse. I started in college.
Yeah, no, I quit. I was just like, and I liked it in high school because I would listen to music and it was fun. But I just, I don't know, the way marijuana affects me is these days, I honestly don't think I've had a puff of marijuana since 13 years ago, something like that. Either I become insanely paranoid, insane to the point of like I can't move, or I just laugh for hours straight, and but not in an enjoyable way, kind of like I'm just so stupid.
I can't stop laughing.
Yeah,
stop this.
And I remember, right before college, when I was on this backpacking trip through Europe, we went to Amsterdam and we went to the Van Gogh Museum and we went to a cafe beforehand and we got stoned out of our minds. And I remember I'm in the Van Gogh Museum and I'm so paranoid that someone's going to know I'm high. And I'm like, dude, to myself, like, you're in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. Like, no one is sober. This is literally the highest place on earth.
Right.
Why are you worried? And it's just, that's how marijuana affects me, and
it's not for everyone, by the way.
And it's like drinking.
Tell people don't smoke. Like, I'm not saying everyone should smoke. I'm saying I'm doing it because I'm trying to lean into my own authenticity.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But it's not because I'm trying to like create an image or something, and it's not for everyone. Like,
no,
my wife can't do it. It makes her super paranoid.
So it's crippling. It's like,
don't do it. Like, for me, I think because I have, ADD. I mean, I think it's undiagnosed, but I get distracted very easily with ideas. When I smoke, it kind of slows me down. It's hard for me to multitask, but I get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Which I want to give props to Jason Lee, the art god, because he told me the story of how his old girlfriend taught him how to smoke weed. And I really loved it. He's like, she would always get mad at him because he would smoke and watch TV. And she's like, that's not what it's for. He's like, what is it for? Then, they're both artists. She goes, you should smoke and then go focus on something, whether it's family friend, whether it's you're looking at landscape, you're watching, you're out walking, or you're talking to somebody and having an intimate tunnel vision conversation where all you can focus on is that person. Whoa, like that. And I really love that because I realized, well, that's kind of what I do. Like, yeah, it gives me that tunnel vision. It works for me, but not.
And you're lucky. I mean, for me, again, I don't ever feel the need to be stoned, and I don't even remember it these days. But what I do remember was this loss of productivity, and that's something I shouldn't say I prided myself on, but I'm aware about myself is that I'm always trying to be productive. Like if I like everyone else, I will sit around and binge watch a new show, right? But I have this like, man, you could have been writing, you could have been on the phone, you could have been thinking of something, you could have been out driving a car, and you just wasted all this time, and time is precious. And so for me, weed was always this like loss of productivity.
Interesting.
And it
has the opposite effect on me. Yeah, in a weird way, because I'm like, I got an idea. Da-da-da.
Yeah,
I just stop myself. I flow. Like, but again, I know some people like that, but most people, people that like it, that smoke it frequently, have like a certain reaction to it.
I just read Seth Rogen's new book, which is hysterical, but it's like, that guy smokes pot 24 hours a day, and he's super productive. And I don't think I could do that.
Right.
Right.
And it's a choice.
And I'd also be like 100 pounds fatter than I am.
I know. And I'm saying this because I don't want people to think that I'm saying you should smoke. Be you. Don't drink. If you don't need to drink or smoke, fine.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, if it helps your life overall cost benefit,
Yeah.
It's your life, man.
And again, like, I just, knock on wood, I just don't have an addictive, as I'm smoking a cigar and drinking whiskey at 3 PM, I don't have an addictive personality, meaning like I have, like we were talking about with Troy, your partner, like, I have, I don't know, 250 bottles of whiskey.
Right.
Last night I had a glass,
right.
The night before I had nothing.
Right.
And it's all open. It's all right. 10 feet from where I sit and watch TV. I just oftentimes don't think about it, but I have a lot of friends that are sober and like, they're like, if I have one drink, then I have 30 drinks and 3 days later I'm in Tijuana without my wallet.
Right. I'm the same way with drinking. I can sip it.
Yeah.
If I go out, it's very social for me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because I don't want to be controlled by anything. Like,
yeah. And so,
but if somebody likes that, like, my wife likes to have a glass or two of wine every night, and I encourage that, man. She's much nicer to me afterwards. You know what I'm saying? So, honey, you want me to go to the store? I support you now.
Totally. Yeah.
For some people, maybe 2 glasses is not good.
Yeah, and once a month or something, I'll drink too much, and it's okay.
Right. All in balance, man.
Yeah, and what I love, I'm just super into, and we're lucky. We're at this time where there's like this ultra high quality, like probably the best bourbon that's ever existed on earth is like sitting around in bottles right now, and you can get it. And it's just so enjoyable. Like the tastes are just like so wonderful.
I have a random question for you.
Yes, sir.
Only because you mentioned a few things. I like to I like to help people figure out what they want to do. And
sure.
Why not, man? You should fucking think big now, right? It made me think, like, are you interested in writing movies, car movies?
I've always
car movies. Yeah. There's a huge market, obviously. And
yes and no. Like, I don't know, like, what is a good car movie? It's the movie Cars is pretty good.
That is, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's actually
that's
pretty
exactly
good.
My point.
Yeah,
but, other than racing movies,
it's tough. Like
good.
Yeah,
Mustang versus Ferrari was really.
Well, that
cool.
was great. Yeah, that was great. That was that. And, I mean, look at the Mangold, the director, is like the guy did Walk the Line, Copland, Logan. Like, he's a master storyteller.
Yeah.
That was a great story.
Yeah.
And like, so I'd honestly be more interested in writing other stuff, not writing car stuff.
Such as?
I don't know. I always have ideas for movies,
I actually love that because, I swear, another idea popped in that perfectly segues with that, because I thought, okay, well, what about, there aren't good movies that just feature cool cars, really, right? So what about, it's not a car movie. It's just for people that love cars. It could even be a running show. It's a show. Maybe it's a guy that works in a exotic car dealership, but you just get exposed, and so you're kind of like, it's almost like in movie branding. You're not really branding, but you're featuring these beautiful machines.
Sure, I mean, there's a lot of shows.
There's a sitcom. There's a
that's the trick. Yeah, that's the trick. For me, like, the great car movies are Ronin, right? So that's ostensibly. That's a spy movie, right? It's about the end of the Cold War. What does a CIA person do when the Cold War is over? What does a warrior do when there's no more fight to fight, right? But if you're a car person, there is no better movie ever about cars than Ronin. There are two, because Frankenheimer, the director, was a car maniac, and he made sure that the car scenes were the best. And that, I think, is, as far as I'm concerned, is the best ever car movie is Ronin. Ronin with De Niro and Jean Reno.
I love De Niro.
Yeah.
Fucking can't believe it, but I don't think I've seen that movie.
It's a wonderful film, because the idea was the Ronin were these samurais that lost their masters, right? So in this movie they get together, like, an ex-CIA guy, whatever the French version of the CIA is, a British one, an East German one, and they have to like pull off a heist, basically. Right. But because the Cold War is over, like that what do these warriors do, right? So that's the plot of the movie, and it's very good action movie, blah blah. But the car scenes are like nothing ever has equaled that. Like even Bullet, which is a very cool scene. The one chase scene with the Mustang and the Charger through San Francisco where they're jumping, and that's a cool scene, but it's like it pales in comparison to what they did with Ronin. It's just it's the best. And there's these two car chases that, like, the Audi S8, there's an M5, it's a E34 M5, these these wacky Citrons, and like it's just the greatest. You know, they have a and again, it's like, you know, to a normal person, they're like, oh, that's an Audi. Well, no, actually, that's an S8. Oh, that's a Mercedes. Actually, that's a 6.9. That is a very special, and like only it's an Easter egg, right? So if you watch the movie and you don't know what a Mercedes 6.9 is, you're like, oh, it's a nice brown Mercedes, and he fires a bazooka out of the roof of an RPG. But to a car guy, you're like, oh my God, there's a 6.9 like going through Nice, you know, and it's the greatest. It's the greatest.
I just pictured like this is probably a bad idea, but I just pictured like to get people like me to appreciate it, those car scenes. Like we just watched this cartoon where they kept doing like social media type emojis because they're trying to appeal to the social media like generation. But I just pictured like these car scenes where there's a freeze frame and then there's like a data pixel that says what the car is and why it's fucking badass. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
It's one of those. It's like
make it more mainstream.
Yeah,
you want to bring it to the people. Like why? You should appreciate. I don't know how to appreciate that car like you can because you know the history. Why it's
tough. It's tough. It's a tough thing, and and like I said, it's basically an Easter egg for car geeks because if they would have used other cars, it would have been great. But the fact that it was great and they're using these like unicorns, like, you know, an Audi S8 in this chase scene is the like literal coolest of the time, was the coolest thing, you know, and it's exactly what it was designed to do.
Sometimes those Easter eggs make the brand though. Because the people that understand it start talking about it, and then even the laymen go, fuck, did you hear about that movie? They got these crazy cars in it, and then they want to watch. So even if you don't know the ROI on it,
right? Like
if you're making a movie,
right?
I'd be like, don't even fucking make it if you can't.
And if you're, you know, I have no idea how that movie was put together, but like, you know, if Audi hadn't given the S8, or maybe they gave an A8 and put an S8 badge on it, but like, if you're the producer and you're like, wait a second, why are we going to use the $120,000 car when we could just use a $40,000 car and do the same thing? And it's like, and it's not like it's a Ferrari. It's some like, you know, it's a sedan, but it's this, you know, it's this special sedan that has like massive appeal to car nerds only. You know what I mean? It's like if you did like Jessica Jones, you know, that Marvel thing, right? Yeah. So she drinks in the 3rd season, she's drinking Michter's, right? So to 99% of the audience, she's drinking whiskey. To whiskey geeks, it's like, oh, woo, she's drinking Michter's. Like, that's cool. And you know, it's this tiny little weird thing. I don't know what the ROI is on that, but it's just something I picked up on. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, it's like having a cool watch in a movie, right? Most people just say, oh, that's a watch. But like, you know, the geeks are watching James Bond. They're like, oh, that's the new Omega. That's the 300M. That's the you know, and it works.
I was thinking like if you did want to produce a movie with cars, you have such an advantage, man. Because a lot of producing is getting access.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a budget.
Sure.
You've got unlimited basically access because of the people, you know, the relationships you have. To any car
the problem, I mean, look, the problem with, and I did video, I still do video with cars, and it's, you know, when you drive them hard, you destroy them. So it's like, and I think this is where a lot of people make mistakes when they're writing these like car focused movies, is like, we're going to have this, you know, unicorn. And if it's not Fast and the Furious, where a lot of those cars, they're not actually the real thing. Or, you know, but you're going to destroy the car. So it's like, it's very hard to go to Lamborghini and be like, we need 10 of these, you know, but
reverse engineer,
but for
the script, sponsors obviously pay for it.
James Bond does it, right? James Bond, like the last one, they actually made a car for the movie. It's called the DB10. So, you know, there was a DB2. I don't know if there's a DB1. I can't remember. There was a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, 6. Famously, Connery, you know, he drove the DB6. There's a 7, 8, 9, and then 10. They made 10 of them for the movie. That's it. And now they sell the DB11. So it's
smart, right?
They're so tied into that franchise,
right?
You know, but that's a different James Bond. You know, you're in the, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars of. It's a different thing,
right?
You know, so
absolutely,
yeah. But I mean,
it's amazing what money can do.
Yeah, it opens up a lot of doors. Man. Yeah. You know,
but that's what you do. You reverse engineer. You got to think about what the budget is and what you don't want. You don't want to have a script where you're going to damage the cars. Maybe you want to have a script around car aficionados that do events at these, even if it's that. So it's people, you're just around it. There's drama, there's something happening, but you get all these cars for, even for people like me to go, wow, because everyone goes, holy shit, that's
but see, that's what, back to Ronin for a second, right? Very few people go, holy shit, that's an S8. But like the fact that it's there, like the geeks are like, oh my God, they're doing this with an S8. That's cool.
If you want to create an iconic movie, though, you got to do that, I think.
Yeah.
There's got to be like layering. There's got to be like depth to it.
Yeah, and that's why if you read like, best car movies of all time, why is this weird spy movie on there? And it's like, well, it's because of that.
Right.
And I mean, and it's funny though, like with that great DB10 they built for the James Bond movie, that director didn't know jack about cars or car chases, and that is the most boring. They have the DB10 being chased by the Jag CX-75. It was just almost made into production, didn't quite make it. Mid-engine hybrid hypercar the Jag was going to do, and it's the most boring chase scene of all time. It's just through like empty streets of Rome at night. And they're driving too slow. But you had a director who didn't know anything about cars, right? With these cool cars, didn't know what to do with them. And so I think the movie was Spectre. It's a very, amongst car nerds, it's a very unloved car chase. Right. Whereas in Quantum of Solace, which most Bond fans dislike because it's kind of a slow burning movie, the opening scene with the Aston, I think it's a DBS, it's the greatest opening chase scene of all time. They rip the doors off the car. They're going through tunnels in Monaco. And it's like, why is that exciting? Why is Ronin exciting? It's because there's other shit on the road. You don't have empty streets. You have packed streets, and there's trucks crashing and fires and driving the wrong way and doors flying off. Whereas in Rome, it just looks like a commercial, like two cars quietly going through these streets. And they made a little comedy routine out of one of them. They hit a Fiat. So it can be done, hard to do well. It's very rare, and again, there's not a lot of great cars. There just aren't a lot of great car movies. So
you mentioned you got a new podcast?
Yeah. Well, I'm on Spike's Car Radio. Yeah. And,
how many episodes in?
Oh, I mean, they've been doing it forever. It was actually funny. So I was a guest. I started as a guest and I just became a frequent guest, and we were on air just like this. And Spike goes, do you have your own podcast? I go, no, I have a lot of pressure to do one. He goes, why don't you just join this one? And then after the show, I was like, were you serious? He goes, yeah. And so I joined, and it's the fourth most downloaded automotive podcast in the world.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's great.
Congrats, man.
It's killer.
So how many episodes have you done since it's been like official?
Oh, I don't know, a dozen. We do one every week. Yeah. I don't know how many. It's probably 3, 4, or 5 months ago, something like that. It's hard to tell time in the pandemic. You know what I mean?
No, that's cool. I was just wondering if you're like in production or you're doing it or you're already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we recorded one on Saturday, and then this week I'm missing because I'm going to be out of town. But we already have we have the next one set, and it's it's good.
So what's what, like, do you have when you go on these podcasts, what's your like North Star, right? Like, do you want to educate people on cars? Do you want to
Spike's show is a comedy show, right? I mean, he's a comedy writer, and I'll tell you what I love about doing this show, the Spike show, is that, and I don't listen to Spike, but I have so much to learn from this guy, because he's so, I mean, he wrote for Saturday Night Live, he wrote for Space Ghost, he wrote for Letterman, he was the head writer on Seinfeld, the Soup Nazi episode, right? If you go and take a tour of whatever studio did Seinfeld, the script on the set is the Soup Nazi episode open to the No Soup for You page, right? I mean, that's TV history, right?
Oh, I love that episode.
So yeah. That was the first episode he wrote, and he tells the greatest story. I heard him on some other podcasts telling the story. They didn't think anything of it. It was just another episode. And he said him and Larry David sat there editing for 3 days. And at the end of the third day, Larry David goes, well, we did what we could. And Spike's like, great, I'm going to lose this job. And it was turned into this cultural phenomenon. So for me, it's great because I have so much to learn about like comedy from Spike. And also my show I was the main guy for years, right? So it was just like the focus was on me. This is Spike's show, so he runs the show. So I'm learning how to like lay back in the cut, don't over talk, and I'll hear an episode. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I was talking too much, and I have this loud booming voice, and I can overtake any conversation whenever I want to. And Spike's a quieter guy. I'm learning how to like be a second fiddle, but how important that second fiddle is. But it's really a comedy show with this guy Zuckerman.
Like playing bass.
Yeah. Well, I think bass should be out in front, but bad example for me. But it's just, ostensibly it's about cars, but really we just make each other laugh. This other guy Zuckerman, like, I'll look at him and he gets this like evil glint in his eye, and I know it's going to be hysterical. And I've walked out of there like laughing for a week about some of the stuff we talk about. It's the funniest show. And people are loving it. I mean, I went to a car event on Friday, and I had, I don't know, a dozen people come up to me. They're like, I heard the latest episode. It was hysterical. Like I laughed. I almost crashed my car. I was laughing so hard. So it's fun.
That's
it's
awesome,
really
man.
fun. Yeah. And it's great. And it's opening up all these new doors and different audience, and it's great. So
It's
really
what
loving it.
we always dreamed of.
Oh.
Like, I used to have this dream, and one of the reasons I got into, I guess, film production was, well, I thought, I got to get into something I'm excited about, and that's why I even looked into it. Honestly, I had no idea what it even was.
Yeah.
I called a friend, by the way, that I had heard years ago that was involved in production somehow, and I go, hey man, like, how do I get involved? He's like, invest in a documentary, right? And I got access for almost no money, by the way. It doesn't take a lot.
No, not for
The
documentaries.
opportunities
Yeah.
are there.
Sure.
And they're like, oh yeah, come and watch, just like Stephanie's going to come watch. And I met a lot of people, and I learned, and I was like, oh, that's how you fucking do a doc. So you sit there, you ask, and I see what they're looking for, how they're finding the angles, and the DP coming in going, hey, let's get a shot here or whatever. You know what I mean? And that was it. And one thing led to another. I had no fucking idea, why I was doing it or where it was going to lead me, but here we are.
And again, like with Spike Show, I never really thought I'd do anything pure comedy. I mean, again, it's not pure comedy. We do talk about cars, but like, Spike just finished writing a movie with Seinfeld, like
Right.
he's the master comedian, and, Spike makes him funny, and so like, it's just this crazy thing I stumbled into.
Yeah. It's I forgot. Yeah. One of the reasons I got into film production, I was saying, now I remember it, is sitting around the table, like the idea of sitting around the table, just brainstorming ideas, like reading script, you know what I mean? Table reading, and sitting around talking like this, right? With like a group of friends, essentially. And even as a kid, I remember with our friends, I don't know if you had that, we would sit around and start fucking talking shit, like in college. And go, man,
I do
we
that
should
with
have
my
a radio show, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
it's like, it came full circle. We didn't realize that we actually should have taken it seriously, maybe.
Right.
And actually, a lot of my friends, and they might be listening, would be way funnier podcasters than me and should be doing it, but just didn't, I guess, whatever. Life took them in a different direction. Family, jobs, not risk. You know what I mean? Everyone's got their own personal risk tolerance.
Right.
Not everybody needs to like take a big chance and be poor for 5 years, because that's what I had to do too. Like,
Yeah.
I had to put my family at risk.
It happens.
I had to ask my family, hey, like you did.
I had a new family.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
was
easy.
like, hey,
right.
I was like, hey, like, I'm going to be like on an adventure. I don't want to put you, and I had responsibilities.
Yeah.
But I decided that I felt like if I didn't, I would just burn out and be even less useful to them.
Right.
Because I felt like I was holding on by a thread at my job. I felt like I wasn't giving my all, and it's not right. And how long am I going to keep doing this? So it was like that feeling of I had to do it, but not everybody, we all adapt.
Right.
If I had to feed my family, I would go back to that job. No problem. I'll make the
Sure.
best of it.
Sure.
I'll have conversations. There's
Once
no
and
judgment,
you know
right?
this, right? Once you have a child, like,
Yeah.
they say everything changes. That's one of the things that changes. You will do,
Whatever it takes.
and I turn down stuff every now and again because it threatens my day job. And I like my day job a lot, and but opportunities show up, and it's like I can't do it.
Right.
I just can't do it.
But you're building toward that, and
yeah,
same here. Like there's going to be a tipping point if you have faith in following your authenticity. Seriously, that is what it is. Like, it sounds corny, but you can't really be authentic unless you know who you are. So that's the first step. It took me forever to figure out, what the fuck do I even want to do? Who even am I? What do I want to contribute to people? Because every job you're helping people. Every job, right? If you're a restaurateur, you're serving somebody.
Sure.
If you're a writer, you're entertaining. If you're an athlete, you're entertaining. If whatever you're doing, you're serving people. how do you want to do that so you can feel as fulfilled as possible?
Right. And for me, what's I'm loving about this Spike show is that I'm learning something new, which I haven't done in a long time. And it's really interesting to see the world through the eyes of a Hollywood veteran, a comedy veteran, because he's like, let me tell you what's actually funny. And like, sometimes he'll pause the show. He's like, guys, you're fucking up. Don't do this. Here's why. And it's like, yeah, he's right. And it's great. It's just like, the way he thinks about things. I'm making Spike sound like this like monster genius. I mean, he's just a funny guy, but it's like, I just would have never thought about it like that, and
the learning, like you said, you're never gonna stop. Like, this will take you somewhere else. You're never gonna just be the same.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Unless you just stop. But
right. And so it's like it's a blast. Yeah. And it's like it's just so much fun. I love it. I just love it so much.
Dude, it's very cool. Inspiring.
Yeah.
Right? And I know a lot of people say it.
It happened again, a happy accident where I always, I was talking about earlier, like never say no. Anyone who asks me to do a podcast, generally speaking, I do it, and I did Spike's, and then I just became a very frequent guest, and he's like, why don't you join? And it was never really planned, I don't think, but it worked out. And for whatever reason, right now we're having great success and people are digging it. And it's like, it's just so funny. And then if you haven't heard it, like this guy Zuckerman is just like a maniac. He's the funniest, one of the naturally funniest people ever. He's just crazy. He's this like cutthroat lawyer, and he's just hysterical. And like I said, I mean, one of the, I think, reasons, one of the ways I got set up to do this was there's this guy, Matt Farah, who's an interesting guy that I think would actually be a good guest for this show. But he's the Smoking Tire. And he has a very, very successful podcast, and I'm a guest on there a lot. And we just do 2 hours and we just kind of get drunk and like talk about cars, but it's funny at the same time. And usually I find even when I'm doing car videos, if I critique myself, I'm aside from being too fat, I'm too cerebral. I'm always like, let's not laugh. Let's actually, this is why Bentley's actually important, and like, and don't make fun of Bentley owners, but like think of the cars. Whereas with Matt, we just laugh. And then with the Spikes thing, it's really a comedy show. And it is cool. It's just great.
Love it, man. Well, by the way, anybody, I'm kind of like you in that, like this podcast, it was just a leap of faith, man. Like I always want to hear people's stories. I always want to learn from, I'm like a people psychologist. Like I love understanding how people think. I love learning from their stories so I can become a better player in this game, because we're all very similar, and I can't obviously have your experiences, man, because you're there, I'm here. Right. So, anybody you want to bring on here that you think it would just be a good vibe, just let me know. I think
Farrah would be pretty cool. He's just got, to me, such an inspiring story, because he's such a success at what he does, and he's so naturally talented at it. Like probably 12 years ago, I did a video with him, and it's one of those jokes where if you're ever behind the on the being filmed, if you get on the first take, everyone's like, one take, Johnny, but like Matt, just every time is one take. He actually has his video series is one takes, and it's just him. He just talks, and that's it. That's what he publishes. But he's just naturally skilled at it, and it's amazing to watch. I don't watch a lot of his videos, but I see it when we podcast together.
I'm not a podcast watcher, by the way.
No, I've never.
I like to live the podcast.
You're gonna laugh. I always tell people I've never actually listened to a car podcast. I'll go back these days once in a while to like something with Spike, because I'll be like, you got to listen to this moment. So I got to like scroll through and find it. Right. The only podcast I listened to 2 in my life, one was about Watergate, and one was about the Lewinsky scandal. I forget the name of the podcast. And I listen to Howard Stern, that's what I listen to when I want to hear people talking, or I listen to music, or CNBC. I like, stocks fascinate me.
Right. That's what's interesting. You don't have to listen to podcasts to be on a podcast.
Well, and the other thing,
telling stories.
I was just telling this story yesterday. Like I don't watch car videos for a number of reasons, but I had this experience where I had this show Head to Head, and I remember it was November, and we were filming in November. And I'm emphasizing that because it's important, but we were doing the Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio. and we're in the car, and I just made the joke like, yeah, we're in the Quadriformaggio, 4 cheese. So in December, a Grand Tour episode came out where Jeremy Clarkson called the thing the Quadriformaggio, and then our video went live in January. And I said Quadriformaggio, and everyone's like, you copied Clarkson. And even though there's no way to like really explain that to anyone who's seen both videos, like I know if I never watch another car video, I'm not guilty of stealing. Right? I'm not guilty of that. You might accuse me of that, but it's a false accusation.
Right.
So that's that. When that happened, that was like 2016. I'm like, all right, done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have that happen.
So that's interesting you say that, because it's not. I also don't want to taint myself. Like I don't really want. I do want to research things and learn, and I'm open to feedback always. Right. I've learned to be open. I wasn't always open, but
that's what I'm experiencing with Spike now. Is like it's great.
You can always learn, man. I'm learning that. Like I have Troy is my partner, man. There aren't that many grown men I could co-CEO with. Right. Because we get each other, we respect each other. But I also like go, wow, you're like I'm learning all the time, and he's learning, and so I forgot where.
I was saying that I don't want to like watch another car video because
exactly, man. I don't want to taint myself. Like, I do want to be open to other podcasts, but I don't want to taint myself, and I don't like researching my guests. And people keep saying, "Well, you should," and I'm like, "Well, I do want to introduce them properly, but like, I just want to have a conversation, like as if." You came over, you're a guest.
That's basically what we're doing with camera people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I want to keep it that way, because that is my brand, is like just being authentic, I guess. Or whatever that is. Right. And that part, so I want it that way because it's also easier, man. Speaking of that, I just want to
I'm just going to check the time because my countdown timer is buzzing in my head. No, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. So. Good. The authenticity, man. Like I was telling you, my friend Alan, when I asked him like, how I should do it, how I should kind of like, manage the podcast, what I should put out there. And, I think like when he said that, I started also filtering that in everything I did. And this is like in the last 2 weeks. And it's not like, I feel like I was trying to be authentic. I wasn't consciously always thinking. I wasn't always checking in on every decision. Like, hey, how should our labels look? Or what should our cork be, cork or fake cork? Right. And it's like, well, who are we? Like, we like real, like, let's lean that way. Let's make that decision, right? So I've been doing that. And he said in a way, he's like, that should be your North Star. When you're not sure, should you post something? Should you do something? Should you say something? Are you being authentic to yourself? Like, who are you? Like helping people? You like the podcast is all about helping people figure out who they are, not young and old, because I got a late start. Josh, the way we met, he was hungry for this kind of stuff. Like, so, we decided, hey, let's just put out whatever we talk about. Because when I was younger, hearing you could have significantly, if I liked you and believed you, because we are, I feel, having like a regular conversation as much as possible with big ass mics sticking in your face. Yeah. But like there will be somebody that connects with that, and why not help the human race a little bit? Because I feel like when you don't find your passion, man, that is like it's a prescription for disaster, because then you feel bad about yourself. It
builds a lot of depression. Problems. Yeah, for sure.
So I appreciate your story and how even you admitting maybe like you have maybe even slight dyslexia. Like, so what? Yeah. Who cares? Everyone's got some shit, right? That's not the point. Which thing are you willing to work hard at? Which one are you like, oh, I want to do that 10 hours a day? It's really that simple. And even if you're not, like you said, the greatest at it, okay, you'll be the fucking second fiddle, which you can't have the first fiddle without the second, right?
And again though, like on the Spike thing, like, as a comedy show, like I don't think I'm funny enough to be first fiddle, but I can play this secondary role very well, it turns out.
You need a straight kind of guy with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
To allow the person making the jokes.
And the other thing is, I find
it's not that you're not funny though. I think
I can be funny.
On a team, man. You have 3 people, so you're gonna be greater if everyone knows their authentic role without egos. Like, well, I can be funny too. Yeah, you can, but if he's funnier, right? If he has that gift in that way, then be who you are.
Right.
Right. And bounce off of each other.
The other thing I'm finding, and, it's funny, we're talking about, learning to know yourself. And like, I am not, how do I put this? I would never be the first employee. I would be the second. I don't come up with original ideas, but once given the opportunity, and if I'm in on the ground floor, I'm going to run with whatever that initial idea is. And I'm going to run harder and longer than everyone.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so
I'm
for
a
instance,
good starter and not as good at that.
So for instance, like the show Head to Head that I was on, the first episode I was, it was my boss Angus, he hosted it. But then, and then we have this other thing we do, World's Greatest Drag Race. He hosted the first one. He thought it up. I've hosted number 2 through number 10. You know what I mean? Like I didn't think it up, but I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I see how this works.
Steve Jobs didn't invent the fucking smartphone either.
Right. So like with Head to Head, like, he came up with the idea and he passed it on to me, and then I filmed over 100 episodes of it. You know what I mean? So it's
chicken and the egg, man.
Yeah, and so like with a podcast, like, I could have probably had my own podcast. It's it's not that hard to do. But joining Spikes was a much better idea, I think, long term for me than starting my own, because I don't know what, I don't know. It's just we've had, since I've joined, I feel like, and I and according to Spike, that he has access to the numbers, like, we've been very successful. So it's good. So
I'm not saying it just to agree, but from everything you said, it's definitely the sounds like the best decision, man, and a smart decision.
Great. Yeah.
Right?
And I love it.
And
I love
yourself up. Even if you later go do your own podcast, you're gonna have a even greater, mono podcast.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you're just learning. I'm with that. Like, same with Troy. There's no way, and Troy and I feel this way about each other. So, but I don't want to speak for him. There's no way I could be as successful without Troy. Honestly, it's like it's a 1 + 1 = 11 situation. When you have the right 1 + 1 = 11.
Yeah,
because it's two strong ass individuals, like a good marriage. Like a good marriage, 1 + 1 = 11, not 2. Man.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's a cliche.
It's like being in a band, right?
It really is, because when you're sick, they're helping you. When they're sick, you're helping them. When they need support, it's not just it's exponential,
right?
So having a podcast with somebody that you can learn from, man. Like, I can learn from Troy, he can learn from me. We're just challenging each other every fucking day.
Yeah. And like with Spike's thing, it's like, again, I'm learning a lot from Spike, but I think I'm really learning a lot from this guy Zuckerman, because he's like, he just, for him, he's just doing it for fun. I think, I don't know. I've never talked to him about it. I've never talked to either of these two about it. That's the other thing. There's no planning at all, but we just show up and roll.
No script.
Yeah. And, but like, he's so uninhibited, and he's so naturally insane funny. And it's just like,
that's what I want, man.
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants.
Right.
Total, like, to be uninhibited, to be themselves, even if they don't say it or act it, when they see people dancing for no reason, as long as they know there isn't like some other issue, but if they're just dancing, right. They're just like, oh, I like this song. No matter what, even if they're looking at them like, they're thinking like, why can't I do that? Why are you doing that? And people want to be that way, man. Like, when you see someone, that's why people want to watch Joe Rogan and you and people that are natural in front of, they're having real conversations. Like, wow, like everybody wants real, man, especially now.
Right.
The bullshit meter has never been better, because people get so much content. They spot that shit right away. So when somebody's authentic, there's never been a better time to be authentic. You could be a lot. When there were 3 TV stations, you could have some fake shit, and people would be like, "Oh, I guess I'm watching this." That's what
it is. There's nothing else to watch.
Now they're like, "Fuck this guy."
Right.
Talking like fake. Like, I see through you. I saw you. You're doing this on your Instagram or whatever. You got to lean into who you are, even if it's not good. If you think it's not good, fuck it.
But I would also argue that it's important to also, at least for me, to to open up new facets of yourself. So
yes.
So
learn,
I've done this Motor Trend thing for 10 years, and sometimes the videos can be a little funny, But it's like when you take a chance and do something new, and like again, like being on essentially a comedy podcast,
Right.
it's like it's great. It's like, oh wow, I can really do this week in, week out, you know,
Right.
and it works, and it's
Fuck, dude,
so yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Like I love it, man. I can
It's a blast. Yeah.
see why you're enjoying it, and
you're
talking about cars. It's fun. It's not overly serious.
Yeah, but it's like hardly
right.
at this point. It's hardly car. I mean, we talk about cars,
You're
but
just hanging out.
That's not the stuff that has us like laughing for a week afterwards
Right.
and texting each other like, you know, a joke from the show. Usually is not about a car.
Dude,
it's about
that's
something
amazing,
else.
man.
Yeah.
So any other, like, I know I asked you, but I just curious,
Yeah.
like, do you want to write a book? Are you like, do you have like 10-year visions where you're like, okay,
I wish
the podcast thing.
Yeah.
I've mastered.
Well, I'm just starting on this podcast thing, so I will see where that goes. Yeah. I'd like to write a book. I wrote some fiction books when I was younger, and nothing happened with them. And they're probably absolutely horrible, but I'd like to like maybe there's two of them that I could see pulling out and polishing and turning them into something. I think I could do some sort of TV or film writing. You know, I'd love to be involved with like a distillery at some point. I'd like to something with cigars, you know, I don't know, something like that, or maybe not even like with a distillery, but like write about whiskey, write about cigars, that kind of thing. So yeah, I have a lot of different ideas that I want to do, you know.
Awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah,
well, definitely love to collaborate anyway, or if I can help you do what you need to do.
Well,
anyway.
like I said, I'm dying to do this whiskey podcast of yours, you know, like that.
Dude.
that is something, because you know,
we were thinking to do it today, by the way. I talked to Troy, and then
today wouldn't have been good. I couldn't drink that much today. Yeah.
So we were like, let's prepare.
Yeah.
But I go, well, I'll bring some these are bottles we got to explore, by the way, because we bought different craft brands that we like. Troy loves Stellum and
really okay, because I have a bottle. Like, I haven't opened it. It's sitting there.
Loves it, man.
Okay,
he said
cool.
He was shocked how good it was.
Okay, I'll check it out. Yeah,
and so, but yeah, we're like, let's just do it the right way. Plus, we're trying to get our liquid, so we want to like. It'd be cool but it doesn't. I think actually, I don't want to wait for that. I think as soon as we have, I think we should. Well, tell me when you want to do it, because here's what I'm going to say. We were going to try to get some liquid, but you know what? It's not about Filmland. The podcast is
right.
Filmland
Doesn't
podcast.
matter. Right.
It is me and Troy doing a podcast to promote, to talk about things we love, to invite people to drink. We're going to be sampling these. We're not even, so now that I think about it, it's just a matter of deciding on the date and the location, but we could do it here.
Yeah.
I think we should do it.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, I think we definitely
that
do
would be
you know?
so much fun, man.
Yeah.
And if you want to bring somebody, or maybe you want to be the first guest,
I'd love to do that.
Like
and I'll bring some stuff, you know, and I can give my whole whiskey, my bourbon spiel, you know.
Yeah, man. And then I'll just, you know, watch and observe and, you know, kind of appreciate the whiskey nerdiness happening in front of me between you and Troy.
There will be some nerdiness.
Just quietly sit and try to learn at least 10% of what you guys are talking about.
And I miss this. So, you know, I used to my two things happened. So we used to go, and we like 4 or 5 of us would get together and do some like serious, I don't want to say serious drinking in terms of quantity, but like in terms of quality of what we were drinking. It was, you know, you could write a book about that, like the quality of the stuff we were drinking. And then my one friend moved to Florida, who really was like the driving force of that. And then my other friend sadly wound up dying. And so I miss like sitting down and like just drinking the whiskeys. You know,
I want to teach people.
Yeah.
How we're thinking.
Well, that's what we were doing. It was like my one friend and I, we were cigar nerds, and my other friend was a real whiskey expert. And we'd come together and we'd teach him about cigars, and he'd teach us about bourbon, and it was the best. Right. If it wasn't a podcast, we would just sit at, at his house and do it.
Troy is actually, I mean, you met him.
Yeah.
He's got a nice radio voice.
Yeah, well,
you know what I'm saying.
You know,
so
I
think it'll work really well. It could be an interesting.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Maybe we need 2 nerds and an idiot. I don't know.
I don't know if I can join another podcast, but we'll see.
We'll see. We're happy with you. Just stopping.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. See what happens. Yeah.
And talking and teaching people and teaching us And
Yeah, I'm shaking my head yes. But
Yes,
for
man.
everyone out there in Radio Land, I'm shaking
fuck
my head
yes.
yes.
He's shaking his head. Fuck yes.
Yeah.
I'm super pumped, man. Honestly, and I don't know if you need to go, but in case you do, we can always cut it out. I really appreciate you coming on, and even you coming on a random podcast you didn't know anything about. Like I appreciate you just having the balls to jump on. I'm the same as you. Whoever, basically, all of our guests so far have just been. Oh, you want to be on the? Whoever said yes came on. I didn't.
Right.
Whoever I would like talking to came on. So I love how it slowly builds. And I mean, you are let's say our first big name. Let's say.
Okay.
Right, but it's not about that.
Right.
It's about it all happened organic. We met through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
That by the way, I'm just gonna share this thought I had early on because I didn't want to interrupt you. I know now why Bobby was like, when I started going off on my philosophies, he's like, you need to meet Jonny Lieberman. He goes, you have that podcast, right? I go, yeah. I think he went and watched like a clip, and then he called me back. Yeah, I talked to Johnny. You need to call Johnny. Like, he needs to be on your podcast. You're gonna love each other.
Oh, yeah.
He's like
yeah.
He's a people chemist.
He is. Like he is. I know. Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're gonna, yeah, you need, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I called you.
Yeah.
He's like, make sure you call him today.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny, because I've done a lot of podcasts, and it goes one of either two ways. One is we joke around and have fun, or I tell my story, and I it's one of those things. To me, it was never planned. I never thought about it,
Right.
but like people always say, like, dude, that your story is so inspiring to so many people.
Right.
I'm like, it is.
I know.
And I'm like,
is,
okay,
dude.
cool, yeah. So I like sharing it, and it's and again, if there's somebody sitting in a cubicle, like, depressed and not knowing what's out there in life, like, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to.
You don't
but
have
if
to
you
do
love
that.
the cubicle, I'm not.
Yeah.
judging
Oh, hey,
cubicles,
sure.
But if you don't love it, and if you like cars, just look into it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
whatever the fuck it is. You like eyelashes.
Yeah.
Go
yeah.
research the eyelash industry.
Sure.
Break in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. There's always room at the top.
You
Turns
never
out.
know.
Turns
Right.
out. Yeah. Who knew?
there's room. There's room for another podcast.
Right.
Like, you don't have to worry. Yeah, there's so many podcasts. It doesn't matter. If you're a podcast smurf, be a podcast smurf.
Right.
Don't
right,
worry.
Right.
Like, well, what? Well, I want to be an actor, but there's so many. I go, well, you love it for the art. Yeah, but there's so many actors. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
First of all, 90%, of the actors out there aren't really in their heart wanting to be in the art of acting. They want to
Right. They're famous.
famous or-
Yeah.
which
yeah.
that's
yeah.
okay, but maybe they can get famous a different
There's
way.
there's a Kardashian
Acting
way
is
that probably
yeah.
works better.
And
yeah.
that's okay.
It's a lot less work.
Hey,
yeah.
marketing. do
Hey.
that.
Yeah.
But like, if you really love, you have to love the art to be like a Robert De Niro. Even
Yeah.
though they're all these famous actors, people don't realize are fucking obsessed artists. They're
Oh.
obsessed.
Yeah. They don't
obsessed.
stop. Yeah.
So
yeah.
like, just because they're famous and good looking, they're not doing it for the fame. It just kind of happened because they're fucking good at it,
Right.
and they live and breathe that shit. Like
Right.
method acting, like
No, and
becoming
look-
the character. I mean,
And look, like people say to me often, like, don't you get bored of cars? I'm like, no, never, not for 1 second. Like, I could literally talk about cars 24 hours a day. Wouldn't even be effort. I could do it. And like if you look at my like Instagram account, you're like, all this guy does is drive McLarens and Lamborghinis. But I wrote a minivan comparison the other week, and it was fun to write, and I liked writing it, and they're cars. It's fun for me to talk about cars.
right. It's your fucking
That
obsession.
said, like it's if you're starting out, it's not going to be all Lamborghinis and McLarens. You'll get some,
Right.
but even like I just drove 3 pickup trucks the other day. I drove a pickup truck yesterday. I also drove a McLaren, but I drove a Toyota Tacoma,
Right.
So it's there's still work, and you got to be passionate about the work.
Absolutely.
It really helps.
Yeah, but be in your area of passion if at all possible.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing grunt work, at least be
Sure.
around people that
Sure.
have similar
I
interests.
worked with this guy, Roadrunner, John. We call him Roadrunner. He was a PA, right? So, if you know anything about the movie business, like PAs kind of suck. Like
Right.
your job is to have a walkie-talkie on you at all times. And when someone yells at you, you get a trash bag. And I worked with a lot of PAs, and they were all terrible because they all wanted to do something else. This guy wanted to be a PA. He was the best goddamn PA you've ever seen. Like, you'd turn around, he'd be holding the gaff tape, you know, like he was just so pro at it. He's still a PA and he's happy.
Right.
You know, but most PAs were like, you know, working on their scripts or whatever. And they were, you know.
But there are PAs out there
Yeah.
sitting in a cubicle.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
should be PAs.
Yeah,
that
sure.
Never discovered the world of PAs.
Yeah, but again, I've seen the opposite. Like I remember this one guy. Oh my god, we called him Vape King because all he did was sit there and vape. But I remember I was like, "Hey, dude," he had a Sharpie on him. I'm like, "Can I borrow your Sharpie?" And he's like, "Nah, man, that's like my Sharpie." I'm like, "Give me the fucking Sharpie," you know, because like I needed to write whatever I needed to write for the scene we're about to shoot. I had to write like some bullet points on something and tape it to a dashboard. And like, you know, like we were out on a runway, and I'm like, give me the fucking Sharpie, you know? And he's like, you got to give it back to me. I'm like, it's a Sharpie. Like, what? You're a PA. Come on, man. But like this guy, John, he'd be like, what color do you want?
Right.
Like, you know, and like, so
yeah, it's not in the guy's nature to be
yeah,
a PA.
yeah. And I have a
Face
4-year-old,
facts.
and I tell that to my 4-year-old all the time. Like, why does this person do that? I'm like, why does a snake bite? Snakes bite, you know,
Right.
like that's like, learn what you do. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
And learn who you're dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
They're telling you they
yeah.
are.
And if someone asks you for a Sharpie, give them the fucking Sharpie.
Give him the fucking Sharpie, goddammit.
He wouldn't give me the Sharpie. It was the craziest thing. And I remember I'm like, fire this guy,
Right.
get him out of here. You know?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
So, do you want to keep going? Or you wanna,
This would probably be a great time
Yeah,
for me to go because
let's just do it again.
Yeah. Anytime.
Leave them wanting
anytime.
more, man.
Always.
Like, I'm down to keep going, but I don't want.
Like I
think
said,
it's,
like
like,
this
been
4 is a
fucking
good out
amazing.
for me. So
And
this
why-
is
yeah,
good.
Why ruin it now? Why
Yeah, ruin
risk
it
me
later.
saying
Yeah,
some
yeah.
stupid ass shit and really fuck it up, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it again, man.
All right, yeah, totally.
I love this.
Yeah, it was fun.
fucking
It was super
awesome,
fun.
and
Yeah.
I was, you know, a little bit nervous about you coming because I wanted, you know, because you're like a professional.
Ah, come
So
on.
I just appreciate how
It's
humble
2 guys and 2 microphones.
And even when I stuttered, you're like right there to help me, man. I appreciate that shit.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm kind of glad that happened because it was like it showed that we don't know what we're doing. We're just fucking doing it, man.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
sharing our story and somebody out, dude. I just want to say, like, I've had a handful of people, even my little tiny. This is a tiny podcast. We haven't done anything, no marketing, no nothing. Come to me and say, like, man, like, I love your podcast. I listen. You changed my life. I'm back
Wow,
into
that's
music.
great.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my
yeah.
kids, like, my kids have been on.
That's
I've
great.
interviewed like 16-year-olds. I got, you know, a lot of like younger people that have come on because I'm open, man. Like I talk to my kids very openly like this.
Mhm.
So we have these conversations. But when you were telling me, like, because I'm seeing you kind of a little bit further down the road, that you made that jump a little sooner. So it's inspirational because I'm like, man, like I can see how you're still like, I'm just fucking Jonny Lieberman, dude. Like, what the fuck? I'm a guy that was in the cubicle and decided, fuck it, I
Hey,
like cars.
Dude,
But it worked, and now people are looking at you like, oh my God, like you said, your story's so inspirational, and
Yeah,
and you're like, what's the big deal? But it is, man.
and you know, look,
It's
do I
a symbol for a lot of people that want to get out of their situation. And
yeah, and
are afraid to
I'm
do it.
lucky that I have the psychology that I do because
Right.
I wasn't afraid of failure. I was just waiting for an opportunity. But do I still feel like a fraud from time to time? Absolutely. And I
Me too,
remember,
man.
I was in the
Every
business.
minute.
I was in the business for 9 years, and this PR guy, he'll remain nameless. But it was like, I'm like, hey, so I'm going to Geneva with you guys next month, right? And he just, you know, we'd been drinking or whatever, and he stops. And he's like, who the fuck are you, man? Who, like, you came from nowhere. Then suddenly everyone's like, oh, Johnny this, Johnny Lieberman that. Who the fuck are you? Why am I taking you to Geneva? He was drunk, but it was like, I'm like, and then I think a lot of people would react like, oh no, he found me out. I'm a fraud. And I'm like, fuck you. That's right. You're taking me to Geneva.
Exactly.
Like you better be taking me.
Yes.
You know, so that's just, I'm just wired that way. Like, again,
Awesome, man.
anytime anyone's like, you don't belong here,
Right.
it's like, oh yeah, like now I'm moving in.
Unfortunately, not everyone has that.
No,
But
I'm
even if
wired
you
that way.
don't,
Yeah.
You can still
Just fake
fucking do
it. Just
anyway.
fake it till you make it. Yeah. Just fake it. Yeah.
It's okay to. I posted this read like, it's okay to fake it. till you
Totally.
make it.
Everyone's faking it.
You're
Everyone's
not
faking
being
it.
You're not being like fake to yourself. You're just faking the confidence. That's all. Like,
dude,
if I was
friends,
confident, what would I do? I would get up and go and just show up.
I have friends that are CEOs of billion-dollar companies, and when we get to talking, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I got this job.
If they do,
yeah.
I was winging it.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
No, but they'll be on CNBC and they sound brilliant. And they know what they're talking about. But we'll be having drinks and they're just like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Because they're amazing storytellers.
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
tell
yeah,
stories with numbers and product descriptions.
Yep.
And we're maybe better at the life stories.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways,
brother,
Rick,
thank you,
it was
man.
super
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. See you next time.
See
and on the
ya.
Whiskey Podcast.
Yes.
All right.
Jonny Lieberman out.
Knock him out the box, Rick. Knock him out, Rick. Knock him out the box.